Hey guys, welcome back to Allie's Corner. Today I have a couple of scary stories, I guess. Um, they're from Scared with Jess, which I have recently found her, and she is very good. So definitely check her out if you like these kinds of stories that we're about to listen to. I have two of them, so we're going to just get right into them.
What would you do if your husband came home from work early and sat down at the kitchen table, but then you get a call from your real husband? This is Scared with Jess, and today's story is about a woman who said that something came into her house, but it wasn't her husband. I was making dinner when I heard the front door open. At first, that didn't bother me. My husband had texted earlier saying work was busy, though every now and then he'd get out early. It happened. I was at the stove, half paying attention to the pasta, half thinking about whether we still had enough garlic bread for both of us, and when I heard his shoes in the hallway, I called out, "You're home early." He didn't answer. That was the first thing that got under my skin. Usually he'd respond right away. Even if he was tired, even if he was in a mood, he'd say something. And this time I just heard a pause and then one quiet, flat, "Yeah." I turned around and he was standing in the kitchen doorway looking at me. The same work shirt and the same face, but something still in me tightened up. He didn't come over, he didn't kiss my cheek, he didn't drop his bag by the wall like he usually does. He just stood there watching me like he was trying to remember what I'd look like from that angle. I laughed a little because I felt silly for even noticing and said, "Everything okay?" He asked, "Did anyone call today?" I said no. And then he asked, "Did you unlock the back door?" I remember blinking at him because the question was so strange. I said, "What?" He asked again in the same voice and same expression. I said, "No, I hadn't." Then he said, "Did you tell anyone I live here?" That was when my stomach dropped. I asked him what he was talking about, and he didn't answer. He came into the kitchen, pulled out a chair, and sat at the table. He folded his hands in front of him and looked at me. I turned the stove off, and I didn't think about it, I just did it. Then my phone rang. I looked down at the screen and the blood left my face. It was my husband. At the table, the thing wearing him smiled. I answered the call with my hand shaking so hard I nearly lost the grip on my phone. And he said, "Hey, I'm leaving now. I should be home in 20." I couldn't speak. Then he said, "Why are you whispering?" I looked over at the kitchen table, and it was still sitting there in his chair with that same little smile, waiting. I said as quietly as I could, "If you're not home, who is sitting in my kitchen?" He went silent, and I could hear traffic behind him for a second. Then he said, sharp enough to cut right through me, "What?" The thing at the table stood up, slowly. It never broke eye contact with me. Then it turned and walked towards the stairs. I watched it go because I could not make my legs work. It moved like it knew the house, like it had already been there a while. My husband kept saying my name through the phone, and I finally whispered, "It's going upstairs." That stopped him. I heard his car door slam on his end. Then he said, "Get out of the house right now." I still wasn't moving. He shouted it again louder, "Get out right now." From upstairs, I heard footsteps begin, heavy and slow, one after another above my head. I backed towards the front door without taking my eyes off the staircase. I asked him, "If that's not you, who is upstairs?" He was quiet for a second, and then he said, "I left the attic ladder down this morning." I ran. I didn't take my purse, I didn't grab my keys from the hook, I just yanked the front door open and bolted barefoot across the yard to my neighbor's porch. I was pounding on their door, and my husband got there in maybe 10 minutes. He went in first, and my neighbor went with him. They checked every room, but nobody was there. The attic ladder was down. That part was true. Nothing in the attic either, at least not that they found. Just insulation in boxes and some old Christmas stuff that we keep up there. My husband kept asking if I was sure, I hadn't fallen asleep or mixed something up or had somebody come by who left before he got there. I didn't blame him for trying to make sense of it. I would have done the same thing. But on the kitchen table, right where that thing had been sitting, there was a damp handprint. And when my husband pushed the attic ladder back up, something moved across the top of it. Definitely wasn't a rat or settling wood. I mean, it was a shift of weight. He stopped with both hands still on the ladder and looked up into the opening. I saw his face change. He pulled the ladder shut fast enough to make the ceiling shake. We stayed in a hotel that night, and he still doesn't talk much about what he thought he saw up there, which tells me he did see something. I also never told him one part. When I was standing in the kitchen with him on the phone and that thing was walking towards the stairs, it passed the hall mirror, and for a second I could see its reflection. It was still my husband's body, but the face wasn't his anymore. Anyway, good luck sleeping tonight.
Woo, guys, that one gave me chills for sure. Like, I got cold chills. That was literally my favorite. Whoa. Sorry about that. Other channels started playing stuff. It's okay. We fixed it. Okay, so I'm gonna go with this one again, or another one. This one. Not sure that this is the one I'm thinking of, but if it is, it's really good. But most of her stuff is really good, so I'm not worried about it. So let's watch it.
What would you do if your roommate started sleepwalking at night and so you decided to start filming it, and when you watch the footage
It is
back,
the one I
you
was
realize
thinking.
that that's not your roommate? This is Scared with Jess, and today's story is about a woman who says that she
This
caught
one's
on camera the exact reason why she will never live with another person again. I've shown the video to 4 people. 2 of them cried, and one of them left my apartment without saying anything and texted me an hour later asking me to please never send it to them. The 4th one watched it 3 times and then told me to delete it and never speak about it again. I haven't deleted it, and I don't know why. I think part of me needs proof that I didn't make this up. My roommate Danny and I had been living together for about 8 months when it started. We got along fine, split everything evenly, didn't have any real issues, but she worked early shifts, so she was usually asleep by 10 and I was the night owl. That's relevant because it means I was always awake when it started happening. That first night, I heard her get up. I thought she was going to the bathroom. It was around 2 a.m., and I heard her door open, heard her in the hallway, and then it went quiet. I got up to check because the quiet felt weird and found her standing in the kitchen facing the wall with both palms flat against it. I said her name and she didn't respond. I touched her shoulder and she turned around and walked back to her room and got into bed and never
Excuse
woke
me.
up. I looked it up, and the next morning, everything I read said not to startle a sleepwalker, not to make a big deal of it, and that was it. It was usually harmless. I mentioned it to her over coffee, and she had zero memory of it and seemed embarrassed, so I dropped it. But it kept happening. Every few nights, I'd hear her door and find her somewhere in the apartment, standing in the hallway, or maybe sitting in the kitchen table. Once she was just in the middle of the living room with her head tilted back slightly like she was looking at the ceiling. I always guided her back to bed, and she never remembered any of it. After about 2 weeks of this, I started filming it. Partly because I thought it was wild and I wanted to show her, partly because I was starting to lose sleep over it, and I think some part of me wanted documentation without fully knowing why. The first couple videos were just what I thought I'd been seeing, her standing somewhere and me guiding her back. Weird, but nothing that made me feel sick. The third video is the one. I heard her around 3 a.m. and grabbed my phone before I even got out of bed. I turned on the flashlight and she was in the hallway, which was normal by then, but the way she was walking was wrong. It's hard to explain in a way that sounds as bad as it actually looks on the tape, but I'll try. Danny's a small person, light on her feet, moves kind of quickly in her normal life. What was in the hallway was moving slowly. Each step was deliberate in a way that felt like whatever was moving her legs was having to think about it, and her arms were slightly away from her body, and her head was down. I stayed in the doorway and I kept filming because I was frozen more than anything else. It walked to the end of the hallway and stopped. Then it turned around. She had never turned around before. She'd always just been standing somewhere and then walked back when I had guided her. She had never, not once, to turn around on her own. It stood there facing me for a second, and then it raised its head. And then it looked directly at the camera. Not in my direction, not in the general vicinity of the light, at the camera, dead center into the lens. And the expression on her face was not an expression I have ever seen Danny make in the entire time I've known her. It wasn't blank the way sleepwalkers look in movies. It was focused, patient, like it had been waiting for me to come out of my room and was glad I finally did. We stood there looking at each other for what the timestamp says was 11 seconds, but felt like so much longer. Then it smiled. I shut my bedroom door and locked it and sat against it on the floor until the sun came up. I didn't hear her go back to her room, and I don't know when it happened. In the morning, Danny was completely normal. She made coffee, she asked about my plans, and then she was complaining about what she had to do for that weekend. I sat across from her and watched her face the entire time because I kept thinking about that smile and how long it took her face to do it. I didn't show her the video that day. I couldn't figure out how. 2 nights later, I woke up to my bedroom door handle turning. Not rattling, not banging, slowly turning. As far as the lock would let it go and then holding it there. I didn't move. I didn't make a sound. I lay there and watched the handle, and it stayed like that, turned as far as it could go for a long time. Long enough that I started wondering if I was going to have to watch it all night. Then from the other side of the door, in a voice that sounded almost like Danny, but pitched just slightly wrong, it was too low and too even, and it said, "I know you have it on your phone." I didn't sleep again that night either. I showed Danny the video the next morning, and she watched the whole thing without saying anything. When it got to the part where it looked into the camera, she made a sound I've never heard another person make. The short, sharp exhale like something had knocked the air out of her. She watched it twice more and then handed me my phone back and said she was going to her mom's for a few days. She moved out 3 weeks later. She didn't give me a reason, and I didn't push for one. I think she was just as scared of herself as I was. I've never told her about the door handle or about the voice that I heard. I've thought about it a lot, and I think maybe I'm not supposed to. Anyway, good luck sleeping tonight.
Okay, so that was Scared with Jess. She is really good. She's good at what she does. So if you want to check her videos out, it has been on the screen there for a little bit. So that's all I have for right now. If you like the video, please consider subscribing. One of these days I will get that out correctly. See you in the next one.